Hello, hello, hello. My name is Robert. I am the recovery guy, and you have entered into The Fix. Good afternoon. My name is Robert. I am the Recovery Guy. Welcome to Recovery Guy Podcast. I'm really excited to be here today and share my experience, strength, and hope with you. I'm extra excited because I have a great friend in studio with me, and I'll get to him in just a moment. But in the meantime, check out my podcast, Recovery Guy Podcast, on the major podcast channels. You can catch all of my podcasts and my videos on Real Recovery Guy on YouTube. And of course, for my blogs and podcasts, you can go to recoveryguy.org. And I'm excited about you joining us today. Oh, Instagram, recovery_guy, another social media contact that you have for me. As a matter of fact, we're going to talk about social media today. But before I get too long-winded, I'm going to introduce my friend, Beau. He's going to spend a few minutes sharing a little bit of his story, and then we're going to get on to today's topic. So, Beau, welcome to Recovery Guy.
Yeah, thank you, Robert, so much for having me. It's been a pleasure getting to know you over the last couple of years, and I'm glad to be here. And I'll give you a few minutes of my backstory, and then I guess we'll take it from there. So, my name is Beau Payne. I'm calling in from Boise, Idaho. I'm not originally from Idaho, but I've been up here for about 15 years. I came up here, actually about 20 years, in northern Idaho in Lewiston to play baseball at Lewis Clark State College years ago. And then ended up in Boise, back and forth, Seattle to Boise over the last year. So my recovery story, or I guess my backstory, Robert, I'm the only alcoholic in my family. I think I may have, a drunken uncle somewhere. I don't know. I think we all do, but I don't come from any, my sister's the head coach of the University of Colorado women's basketball team. My mother and father both have, graduate degrees from Tulane and Vanderbilt, which are great schools. I'm a high school dropout, and I have a GED from Idaho State Penitentiary. It's where, so not dumb, but made really poor decisions throughout my life. So I guess, my story has a lot of, real lows and pitfalls, but at the very core of it, it's the same as most everybody else's, is that I was absolutely defeated. And my earliest memories of childhood, incredible violence and dysfunction, not substance abuse, drug abuse, alcoholism, all that stuff, but just violence, I ran through the gamut, what was perpetrated on me, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, sexual abuse. No sexual abuse in my family. That was outside of my family, but all of that, I could probably write, 4 books on those things. And unfortunately. And so by the time I was 11, I was just so destroyed mentally and inside. And, I had no self-esteem, and I had no self-worth, and I hated myself. And that I just, I turned to drugs and alcohol, and I think I smoked marijuana, and when I was 11, that made me feel good. But really the first time that I felt like I fit in anywhere is when I started drinking. And I was 11 or 12 when I started drinking. And, it's like it talks about it in our literature, I felt like I arrived, I felt like, my insecurities went away. I felt like I was better looking. My jokes were funnier. I could talk to women. I could just fit in with people. I was always a great athlete as far as, I was generally the best player on my teams. I played, football, baseball, soccer, I lived in Vancouver, BC at the time, played hockey, a lot of different stuff. And I ended up being a Florida Marlins Major League Baseball draft pick later on in life, my baseball career. And that was cut short due to surgeries, but I like to say due to surgeries, but it was cut short due to severe drug and alcohol abuse, alcoholism. And anyways, I'm grateful for everything and how it turned out. So that's kind of a backstory of me. I use drugs and alcohol. I'm first and foremost an alcoholic, and then everything kind of goes from there. Mm-hmm. I drank for so long for many different reasons. A, I liked the feeling that it produced on me. B, it made me fit in. It took away a lot of my fears and my insecurities, and C, I became physically addicted to it, to all of it. I got that phenomenon of craving, and it just, when that took over, I just couldn't stop. So once I had one drink, I could never stop. And with me, once I drank, I took that one drink, you'd probably see me 3 weeks later on a police blotter, in county jail. And then eventually the county jail stints dried up and the judge would send me to the penitentiary. And I've spent about 10 years total behind bars, incarcerated over the last probably since year 2000 or so. And that's been tough. But I've been out a handful of years and I'm sober 6 years. So I just turned my life around by finally admitting that I am powerless over this stuff, man. And every time I touch alcohol to my lips, my life is unmanageable. I'm just powerless and unmanageable. I have decades of proof. So I just quit fighting it. I gave in. I conceded to my innermost self that I'm alcoholic. And then when I was able to do that, I was able to start working a program. And, I attend 12-step meetings. I work steps. I work with other guys. I have a great relationship with my higher power. And it's been a really good run, really good handful of years of my sobriety. So I think everything in life is a teachable moment. I think it's led me to where I am right now, getting to talk to wonderful people and good friends like yourself who are like-minded. And I honestly, wouldn't trade my life for the world these days.
And I appreciate that. There's so many, as you were talking, so many bells went off in me. From a housekeeping standpoint, if people want to follow you on Instagram, where you and I became friends, yes. What's your Instagram?
My handle on Instagram is Sober Beau. So at Sober Beau. SOBER.
SOBERBEAU. So folks, that's how I got to know Beau, and what a great relationship and friendship we've had. And I had an opportunity, Beau, through the secretary, invited me to come up and speak in Boise. And we had a great opportunity to meet each other face to face. And that was fantastic. One of the things that I think is so important, Beau, as you and I discuss addiction and alcoholism, you found, and because a lot of people who listen may not have a substance abuse, but their behavior. Talk about real quick before we get onto the topic about the other areas of life that you have applied, because alcohol isn't the problem. Alcohol is our response to the problem, right?
I think it's a response to the problem. I think it's a reaction to the problem. I think alcohol is but a symptom. It's for me, took alcohol away from me and I was still left with everything that I didn't like about myself. I was selfish. I was self-centered. I was a taker. I wasn't a giver. I thought about myself constantly. I had no self-esteem, no self-worth. I was useless to my fellow man. I mean, if you read page 52 in the big books, it talks about the bedevilments, which I know that you could probably recite that page word for word. It's my favorite page in the big book because it just talks about how emotionally destroyed we were. And I was just absolutely useless. So alcohol was my best friend, and it was my wife. It was my mistress. It was my best friend, all in one. It was comfort food for me. Anytime I was happy, I would turn to it. Anytime I was sad, I would turn to it. Every time I was blah, whatever, Tuesday afternoon, Saturday night, Monday morning, I turned to it for everything in my life. And so when I dump alcohol on all these problems that I had in life, when I take away the alcohol, I was still left with all this stuff. Yeah. So I had to say, okay, so I made the decision to get sober. I came to believe that a power greater than myself, and number two, well, I'll talk about the first one, my life is unmanageable. Completely. I'm powerless and unmanageable. So what do I go about becoming happy and being a good member of society sober? How do I go about living?
Yeah.
How do I go about being a good son, a father, a brother? How do I stop lying? How do I stop cheating? How do I stop taking? And all this stuff. And it just started happening, slowly but surely by working a program. And I just don't subscribe to the fact that, okay, God, I need help. Take away my alcoholism and that's it.
Yeah.
Like there's work to be done.
No, and I love to share that as much as possible, because we all drank different amounts and different types, some with gin, some with beer, some with tequila, whatever, some would use drugs. But the common denominator between you and me and the other people in and out of the rooms who need recovery is that we had a common experience with an emotional loneliness.
Completely.
That caused such extreme pain and isolation that some people's response would be pornography or compulsive overeating or anorexia or gambling or alcohol or drugs or anger. But those were just responses to that loneliness, that despair that we commonly felt in the rooms. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh, 100%. I think to lose hope is one of the most devastating feelings in the world, to be hopeless.
Yes.
And I had this big black hole inside of me, this empty hole of I just hated myself. Like, I mean, I literally had loaded guns to my head with the hammer cocked and just like, God, give me the strength to pull this trigger, when I was at my worst years ago. And I'm glad that never happened. Mm-hmm. But, I was just out of hope. I had nowhere to turn, or I was unwilling to turn to where I needed, and I was at that jumping off point where I couldn't live with alcohol, but I couldn't live without it. I couldn't imagine life with it, or I couldn't imagine it without it. And I just wanted to die. And I had no hope. I had no idea. I didn't know how to fill in that empty hole that was just of depression, of whatever, you fill in the blank, Mm-hmm. And then I finally started looking at other people in the program that had similar stories to me. And we all have very similar stories. I think our baseline is that we were broken people, and needed help. And I was definitely a broken man. But after I made the decision to get sober for good, I went and I set about, okay, so getting sober, what am I going to do to be happy in sobriety, to be productive in mm-hmm. sobriety, to have a life in sobriety, as I was, alluding to earlier. And I found that through, this program and my relationship with a higher power. And I had to develop that, it just didn't happen overnight for me. But I fill in those holes on a daily basis, Do I have a perfect life? God, I don't think anyone who tells, for me, in my experience, anyone who says they work a perfect program, well, I don't believe it, because I've never seen anyone where I don't know what a perfect program is. I don't know what a perfect person is.
I'll say that, to add to that, anyone tells me they work about a perfect program, they'll probably lie about other things also.
It's like the default mechanism,
Oh, yeah.
And that used to be mine too. That's when you bring, perfect segue. I would just lie to you. I'm on my apartment right now, and I live in a kind of a high rise, and I'm on the 4th floor. And I look out, it's sunny out, and I could. Oh, you ask me, hey, Beau, what's the weather like in Boise? I'd be like, oh, it's pouring rain.
Yeah.
Just I don't know why. Yeah. I would just lie. I'm not a liar anymore. I don't do that anymore. And
along with that's why we have steps. That's why, you and I offline, we're talking about, we are recovered from that seemingly helpless state of mind and body. And as people of recovery, because we know we don't do anything to perfection, right? We claim spiritual progress rather than spiritual perfection. That's why I do a 10-step. We do a 10-step every single day, because I know that even though I might have gotten close to the mark yesterday, I missed the mark in one area to one degree or another. And I need to take that inventory. And you had said it earlier offline, your goal, and to paraphrase you, is to become a better version today than you were yesterday.
Yeah,
why?
100%.
Because if you were perfect yesterday, we're done. We're finished.
We're done.
Yeah. And again, the beauty of our journey is it is a journey. It is, I'm so glad what we're involved with is not a destination, because I would have been done a long time ago, and I never want to be finished.
And to piggyback on that, Robert, if I ever think that I'm done on my journey and that I've got this thing licked, that's probably not too far after you'll find me with a drink in my hand.
You know what?
And, I hope that the day that they're pouring dirt on me, or maybe spread my ashes over Fenway Park, that's kind of my my dream when I die. But I hope that I am still learning the day that I die.
Anyone who doesn't have that opinion, like I previously said, will lie about other things also.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because we do never stop. We never, again, if you can stop doing this and live a life without a plan of recovery, hey, I'll be the first person to take my hat off to you. Yeah. I just don't happen to be one of those people. And, not only that, Beau, I don't want, we met Ed, right? Ed L., who is 50 years sober, secretary of that speaker meeting. And where was Ed at a meeting? What's he doing? Sponsoring people. He's active. After 50 years of personal recovery, you would think, well, at 50 years, you probably can stop now. Ed would say, why would I want to stop?
Yeah, I've known Ed for probably 15 years. And he's, ever since I've known him, he's always been like that. He's greeting people. He's still sponsoring people. I think he's 87 years old. Yeah. And he's just a great guy and a great example of what it means, we're humans, we're fallible, we're going to make mistakes, and perfection is unattainable. I just, in my life, it is.
Yeah.
So 10-step inventory, I can always do better. Even if I think like I've had a great day today, to be honest with you, I went to a great meeting. I get to talk recovery with you, my good friend, and I've got some good stuff lined up for the evening. But at the end of the night, when I take, constructive inventory of what I did today, I'm going to find something that I can do better tomorrow. 100%.
And when we look at, I do that a lot as a husband with Laura. Sometimes I'll reflect the interaction. I'll think I could have been more kind to her. I could have been a better husband. And I'll actually go back and apologize. Say, you know what, babe, you said this yesterday and this was my response. This should have been my response. And I apologize that for me, I wasn't the person to you that I wanted to be. And I do that with my children, sometimes with my grandchildren, in relationships I have with people. I try to go through different relationships and opportunities that I have, because I know no matter how good I was, I could have been better if my ego did not get in my way.
I was just going to say that's like, to be able to do a 10-step inventory, constructively review our day in the evening is for me, it takes humility that I never had in the past.
Yeah.
And it takes smashing that ego or leaving it at the door or whatever metaphor you want to call it. And it takes humility for me to say, I was wrong, or I can do better. And like you said, to my girlfriend or to my daughter or to my buddies or to somebody that I owe an amends to, or this and that, and it's great, and it's not a big deal if I found out that it's not this daunting task. It's like, do it, man. You're not perfect. You're not above people. Review your day, and where you need to make amends to somebody, do it, and where you need to be better, do it, and tell the people about it. And it's like, don't make a big deal out of it.
You know what? Oftentimes, and you'll probably find this true as well. We'll say something like that, then they'll say, "No, you were fine." Maybe to them it didn't. You know what I'm saying? Maybe
totally.
Laura will say, "What's the matter? You didn't defend." Well, I believe I did, because I know what my mark is, and even though you might have been happy, I wasn't happy, because I know I can treat you better, or 100%. I can be that's the power of taking our own inventory. Because if I wait for Laura to take my inventory, I got a problem.
No, I think it's twofold, like making amends or saying sorry to somebody, or I think it's like we do it because we feel we owe it to people. And a lot of times we do. But for me, it's almost cathartic in knowing that I can do better myself as a human being.
Yes.
And other people, like you just alluded to, maybe don't see it and say, "Oh, well, I don't really know what you're talking about. You're fine. You don't owe me anything." But inside, we can't lie. I can't lie to myself. I know.
Yeah.
My standards.
Boom. You just hit it out of the park, because to that biblical adage, to thine own self be true. They told me, it's 2:00 in the morning and the lights are out. Only you know what the truth is, and to deny that, because if I deny that truth, Beau, what else will I deny?
Exactly.
And I deny this, and you and I know, as people who have relapsed, we know that relapse isn't an event; it's a process.
Oh yeah.
It occurs over time, almost like water, drip, 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 will take a sharp edge and round it. Yeah. Even though it's just one drip.
I was going to say the drinking is like the coup de grace, or the final act, But
it's the physical evidence.
Yeah, but the actual, for me, and I'm guessing for you and for most people, it's a gradual lead up of not doing things, of slacking things, cutting corners, half measuring things, and then all of a sudden, I've got a drink in my hand. How did that happen?
There's an and I'm not an aerodynamic expert. All I know is how to fly in a plane, right?
Nor am I.
So what I do know is, because I've watched Star Trek, that if you're off course even 1 degree, by the time you get 100, 200, 1,000 miles, you're off course, and they can't even find you anymore. Yeah. And all it took, that's why people who mill things and machinists are so finite, because they know they have to, they need to get that thing down to the most finite degree, because it's so critical. If it's off a little, it'll end up damaging and even breaking the machine.
Oh, completely. And I agree. And this girl in this meeting I was at today, and I respect her immensely. She's about to get 20 years.
Wow.
It's about a week from now or so. And she came in as a baby. She came in at 16. Just
Wow.
impressive. She had a terrible childhood. Oh my goodness. But, and I respect her immensely. But anyways, what she said was, she said, look, relapse and this disease is progressive, and it gets progressively worse when not treated. But on the flip side, recovery gets progressively better the more we dive into it. And it's like, I was just like, because I told you I was chairing the meeting, I was filling in for somebody who had COVID. And I just wanted to jump out of my seat, put my arms up like, you are the goods, because I want people to know that it's like I say, no matter how far down the scale we've gone, it's just like, it doesn't matter if you apply these principles in your life and you just become willing. And if we just become willing, that our whole lives can turn around. And it's just amazing,
You know what? And our life does turn around, and your life has turned around. And we know countless people who came in before us and who came in after, and we're seeing their life changed for the better every single day. And, it's a miracle. Just recently, a friend of mine, Chris, and his fiancee, Mary, they got married in June, and Chris was in 11 different treatment centers. And we first met in 2010 when I was doing a big book study at a treatment center he was in. And today he's got 9 years of personal recovery, and countless people are finding a way, because the sad thing is, Beau, most people die from our arrestable disease, because it can be arrested, never cured. That's why we never drink again, but it can be arrested, and our life can turn around, and every day can get better. Not every day can get worse. And sadly, I think I mentioned it when I was up in Boise, Father Martin, I had heard him say, for every one alcoholic in recovery, there's 35 who will die.
I love Father Martin, and because I've been in so many rehabs and VA hospitals over the years, and like Thomas Henderson and Father Martin were like the two go-to stuff that they'd always show us. And to piggyback on that, just real quick, I had one of my closest friends pass away August 4th.
I'm sorry.
I appreciate that. And he was a roughneck oil worker in North Dakota, and I had done a lot of prison time with him in the past. And college athlete, kind of like he was a baseball player, caring, kind. He was a leader. He was strong. He was tough. He was smart. He was also a terrible alcoholic and other things. And that's just like the end result of people who are unwilling to attack that disease with everything they have to get better. And I don't want to sound crass, because I love my friend and I miss my friend. His name is Casey. But that's what happens. That's the outcome. And I don't even have enough fingers and toes to count on how many friends of mine have passed away over the years. And unfortunately, this is the end result of what this disease, in my opinion, wants to do to us, is kill us. And I'm just not willing to let that happen to myself.
You, like me and other people that I know, I think most of our work and our example is outside the rooms of AA.
Yeah. I'd agree with that.
Yeah, because I traveled for a living. You're a public speaker and a professional speaker. And we'll want to plug your book that's up and coming as well before we get done, so people know how to get that in the published dates and all that thing. But I spent 20 years on the road, and individuals knew I didn't drink. Some knew why, right? When they were close, I had no, I didn't have any anonymity when I was out there ripping and running, and I sure as hell don't have any anonymity, in my sober life. And,
I got you.
And so, but I found, and this is, go back to what we chatted about offline, this is a design for living.
100%.
The program of recovery that you and I are involved with is duplicated. It's born out of religion, and that's why we can come along any monotheistic religion of the world, the Buddhist network, the naturalist, everyone, it comes from the same thing of surrendering yourself, admitting surrendering,
Yeah.
and then finding a path moving forward. And doesn't everyone from every walk of life need that, whether they're alcoholic or not?
I think that it all comes, you talk about the religions of the world, and maybe I'm being a little too broad on this, but I think it all ends with grace. Like that's what we want. And that's, kind of the end result is, whether it's, I picture this cross, I'm not trying to get a religion, but I picture these different kinds of religions and this and that of the world, but at the center of the cross, everyone comes together and we're looking for grace. And we're looking, and in my experience, that it's like, I can't do this. I need help. I can't do this on my own. My will has run riot and just destroyed myself and everyone else in my life, literally for decades before I got sober. And I need some help outside of my body that is a higher entity, God, if you will, than myself. And I've experienced grace from God. And I'll never shy away from talking about that, because that's, something that I hold very sacred in my life.
I have met non-alcoholics and non-drug addicts who have a problem with their marriage. I've known non-addicted people who didn't know how to keep a job.
Sure.
I've known a number of people outside of the rooms who just have a problem with life on life's terms. One of the greatest examples, and I want to encourage you and others out there, I want you to go watch the movie Wizard of Oz.
Oh, I love it. Yeah.
And look through the Wizard of Oz with the eyes of a person in recovery.
Okay.
Because everyone's looking for something. Dorothy doesn't know what it is. She just knows it's somewhere over the rainbow. She meets the Scarecrow first, who doesn't think he has a brain. Then she meets the Lion, who doesn't feel that he has courage.
His courage, no courage.
Tin Man, who doesn't think he has a heart.
He has a heart. Yep.
You get to the end. Get to the end of the movie. All the Scarecrow gets is a diploma, someone recognizing him, and all of a sudden he's doing mathematical equations.
Yes.
The Lion gets a medal, and all of a sudden he's spouting World War II courageous type sayings, whatever.
He's Winston Churchill.
The Tin Man gets a representation of a heart, and he
cares.
says, I know I have a heart, because I feel it breaking. So all they were people who were misplaced, who didn't think they had something, but then they were recognized of having it, and they automatically had it. Then at the end of the movie, Dorothy goes home. She tries to tell Auntie Em and all about her adventure, and she says, what I know is if I'm ever looking for anything again, I don't have to look any further than my own backyard.
Oh, it's amazing. That's such a great way of looking at it, because I've seen obviously Wizard of Oz, but I have not looked at it through that lens. And now that hearing you break that down the way you did, I'm thinking of myself and other people in recovery, I guess like almost newcomers that were just broken people. And myself, like, okay, Tin Man, I didn't think I had a heart because I thought I was kind of heartless. I did heartless things.
You spent too many years taking hostages.
Yeah, it's exactly. I took, oh my God, the emotional hostages I took were just insane. And then I had no courage, because it was all false courage. It was false bravado. It was false ego. It was all
power you never had.
It was all this arrogance that, it was, but I had no power, so I regained that. And then the other examples. And what I've regained a lot of it, courage and confidence, as opposed to arrogance, or a heart of compassion, empathy, sympathy, stuff like that.
And you've been smart enough to stay out of prison.
Well, yeah, for a handful of years, and it's been great. Good point. But I learned that through the program, and I learned that through the template of living. And I really grew up in this program, learned how to be an adult, and learn how to get those things, that the Tin Man didn't have, or the Scarecrow didn't have, or the Cowardly Lion, and all this stuff. So what a great analogy. So next time I see that, I'll look through that lens.
And even the wizard was living a lie.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic movie. Haven't seen it in a while, but it's one of those ones I try to watch once a year. It's kind of like It's a Wonderful Life, Christmas Eve.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Good old George. Always makes you feel good.
It's just a great example. And here were people depicted. They weren't addicted to anything.
Nothing.
They were just displaced. They just didn't understand who they were. And I think that's our overall message. And as you go out and you meet people out, especially outside of the rooms, because they know that there's something different about Beau Paine.
Yes, absolutely.
They're not sure what it is because they don't know you, but it's like you're smiling a little bit more than the average person. You got a little elevation in your voice. You seem to use words with meaning. What is it about you?
I get that, from even people who may have known me 30 years ago from high school, where I was this, real kind of big time athlete, ended up, and I don't say those things because I don't care about that. It's years and years ago, but I was also very arrogant. I was very insecure, so I was rude, and I was just doing all these things to cover up all the bad ways that I felt about myself. And had a close friend of mine. We kept up a little bit over the years. And a couple of years ago, we were talking on social media, and he says, "Dude, you have been effing reborn. It is unbelievable." He's like, "I don't even recognize you," and he said it in a positive way, and I said, I just got tired of being somebody, just the shell of a person. I got tired of hurting people and letting people down, and I found my purpose and I found my why in life, and then I just went about my way of attacking it and finding out what I can do to help others by being the best that I could be.
Yeah. Zig Ziglar said the biggest tragedy in the world, I'm paraphrasing Zig, he said the greatest tragedy is that a person dies with their song still in them.
Oh, 100%.
Isn't that crazy?
100%. It's so true.
We as individuals, because, when I came into recovery, as so many people know, Beau, and you probably know this as well, alcohol was my primary. I became addicted to drugs.
Mine too.
I was a compulsive gambler.
Mine too. Me too.
Compulsive overeater, bulimic, and I was addicted to pornography. So all of these things and everything centered around me not knowing how to live. Obviously, when I removed the alcohol, we talked about the controllables and the uncontrollables, many things went away. But I had to work on those other things that were behavior, not substance minded, that the new way of living. And there's a lot of people out there who are searching for something that they already own. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I tell new coaching clients or people I work with offline is everything you ever need to be the person you want to be, you already possess. My opportunity is to help you find it and then activate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you already own that. Have you found that to be true as well?
I found 100% to be true because I had to have like a quote unquote come to Jesus, all right, dude, because I knew inside that I possessed a lot of good things as far as being able to help people or being able to help myself. But for me, I just got so sick and tired, not sick and tired of being sick and tired. I mean, that too, but I got sick and tired of being a waste and being looked at as a waste. Like, Beau, Mr. One time, draft pick by the Marlins, or, he was a paratrooper in the Army and he had all this talent and all this stuff. He's in prison again. He got a 7th DUI, or, he got, I became a mockery.
Yeah.
And I had so much music still left in me to compose and to share with the world, like you said, and I knew it, and so I really prayed about it. And I was closing in on my last term of my last prison sentence, and I'm like, dude, you've got to change, man. This is insane. This is absolutely insane. What are you doing back in here? And slowly but surely, I started helping guys on the rec yard in the prisons, like these kind of guys that were kind of timid and meek. And I don't say it in a bad way, but guys that would not be picked to play on a prison softball league or a prison athletic. Prison athletics is very competitive, and it's rough, but it's people, they fight all the time, but they want to win, and so I started helping guys who were shy or didn't know how to swing the bat right or didn't know how to shoot a jump shot, and then I saw that their improvement on the field translate into the way that they carried themselves in general population, walking to the chow hall amongst, 1,500 other inmates. And I was like, wow, okay. So if I could have just a little bit of influence on somebody to maybe they walk with their head a little higher or their chest out a little bit more, I was like, dude, this is really cool. And I started feeling better about my own self. Right. And then I started realizing that the stuff that I had, these talents that I had, that we all have, they're not just proprietary to me. I think we all have our own specific set of good talents that we can use to help people. And I realized that my own talents were just dormant, but they weren't gone. And I never
love that word, dormant. That's
they were just sitting there unused. And and I saw some evidence of how I could help people. And I just carried it into my everyday life. It's been, years since I've been out, and I've just never kind of looked back. And it just gives me a lot of joy, to not only help other people, because I find when I help other people, it's a win-win. I become a better person myself.
And I love that. And I want to wrap up our conversation with that because, I think you'll agree, and many of you listeners will agree as well. Show me a person who doesn't receive, and I'll show you a person who doesn't give. Because I think the reason that you received so much in your recovery, Beau, is because when it was least expected or least rewarded, you gave. And I think the universe, even on a non-religious standpoint, the law of attraction tells me that if I put out goodness, I can receive goodness back. I may not receive it in the measure that I thought, or the way that I thought, or with the substance that I thought, but if nothing else, I will feel good about me because of what I selflessly did. And when I first felt good about me for the first time, I'll never forget it. Finally, I thought, maybe you are somebody. Maybe you can make a difference. And man, brother, when that light goes on, everything begins to change because then it just adds, you know what I'm saying? So probably when you saw that person walk into lunch and you thought it started out on the basketball court, and yet you see the real, their shot was probably still crappy. But yet they walked a little taller in that lunch line, and maybe they weren't a victim as much anymore. And maybe they were able to see something in themselves that could self-actualize and turn into their own personal power. And what a victory that is. What a difference that is.
And I think, and I want to say this real quick because I know we got to wrap up, but I think that once we find our purpose and our why, for lack of a better word, I think that it becomes incumbent upon us to act on it.
Yes.
I think that if we realize that we have a purpose and we find what our purpose is, and when we see that our purpose can help other people, to sit on that and not do anything about it is being complicit in someone else's downfall in life.
Correct.
If that makes sense.
And you know what? And once we are guilty of that, we have to relinquish any expectation that our own life will ever get better.
Oh, 100%, 100%. Because the minute I stop helping somebody in any kind of way, little way, I'm going to remain stagnant, or I'm going to backslide. I'm not going to get better.
Yeah.
There's no way.
Yeah. The gifts of God, as we would understand God, the gifts that are given to us, if we don't use them, just like a brainstem injury patient, those things become atrophied.
Yes.
And we may have the muscle, but we no longer, you're a person going through therapy. You've gone through shoulder therapy, probably knee surgery.
Yeah. 5 shoulder surgeries.
Yeah, you need to work.
Yeah.
You needed to make sure that those muscles, those tendons did not atrophy. So you needed physical therapy to work through the pain, work through it all, so you could have full use of it again. And isn't that what our soul and our spirit mandates?
100%. I would not argue with that one iota. I couldn't find an argument within that. It's perfectly said.
Well, Beau, what we intended to talk about, we never got to.
I was just thinking of that, but we had a good conversation. We didn't get to the topic, but I think we covered a lot of really neat stuff.
We got to all the topics. Because, folks, what you don't know is that Beau and I chatted 45 minutes before we started recording this podcast. And we've been on this podcast for the last, 35
or
minutes,
35,
something like
minutes,
that.
Yeah.
And so we've been talking 75 minutes, and we could do another 75, but you'd probably turn us off.
But that, and I want to say before we go, that's the beauty. That's right. That's the beauty of recovery, is that it's one alcoholic talking with another.
Yes.
And sharing our experience, strength, and hope with each other. And someone like me with a handful of years of sobriety, speaking with someone like you with 36 years, and me with my, 6 years, and just kind of bouncing stuff off of what works for us, and affirming that this is really, like I love talking to people like you. I put a really big premium on one day at a time, quality sobriety. Yes. And I love when I see 20, 30, 35, 40 years, men with that kind of quality sobriety, not just this, I'm better and you, but I think that more people need to see that you can live the rest of your life happy, in solution, in service, in gratitude, and it just continues to get better,
And
so
today is day 13,279.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm still doing in a different approach, different level. I'm still doing everything today that I did when I got my 60-day chip.
Yeah, absolutely.
So everything changes, but nothing changes.
Everything changes, but nothing changes. Exactly. No, 100%. I don't have anything to add to that because it's perfect. It's perfect.
And that's a great thing because, when we work with newcomers in and out of the rooms, we don't have to sort of reinvent. Tom Bennett told me that the program of recovery is like a giant adjustable wrench that'll fit any nut that walks in.
That's pretty good.
And they didn't need to say, man, Robert's here. He's really jacked up. What are we going to do with this guy? Right. They knew what to do with me. Just like I know what to do with every other person. They knew what to do with you, and you know what to do with others as they come in. We apply the same tools that were given to us and help an individual learn how to use those tools themselves.
I find the program works on everybody. If they want to work the program. If they don't, then I'm sorry for them. You know
what?
But
I guarantee you, if I give you the keys, but you never turn on the ignition, your car will never go anywhere.
Car ain't going to start. And I'm not terminally unique. I am an alcoholic who needs help. And the help for me is a relationship with my higher power, working steps, cleaning my side of the street, and putting my hand out to other people who need help.
You know what? You just described me.
Yeah.
And you just described every successful person in recovery that I've ever met.
And it's simplicity too, isn't it? It's like, and it works.
Yeah.
I love it. So great.
Hey, before we part, remind everyone how they can get you on Instagram. And just when is your book going to be released? I'm really interested in that.
Sure. So again, Instagram, my handle is Sober Beau. So SOBERBEAU. You can follow me on that. And then you can go to beaupayne.com. That's my website, BEAUPAYNE.com. And then my book is called Pain to Purpose, because last name Payne. And we're looking at a late September, early October release, exclusively on Amazon. It'll be on Kindle Digital, hard copy, soft copy. So you can just, when it releases, I'll promote a little more. So go ahead and that. I think, I have a good team around me. We're really proud of the book. We put a lot of work into it. Mm-hmm. And I feel good about writing it. And and I do a lot of speaking around the country too. And if you're interested in having me come talk to your organization, or I speak to athletic organizations, business organizations, a little bit about recovery here and there, you can get me on beaupayne.com on my website there. And so that's how you can get a hold of me.
Awesome. Sure. Well, I will put your web link in the notes to this podcast as well.
Great.
And I had a great time.
Me too.
It's been great getting back together. And I'm going to give you the name of my friend Justin, who runs the Rico 12 podcast on Fridays, because I know he'll be interested in hearing your story as well.
Okay.
And so, it's been a great afternoon. And I really appreciate the time. I'm glad we were able to get this scheduled in advance. And so follow Beau, and I follow Beau, and I look forward to seeing what he's going to do every day and his approach to recovery, because I just don't learn from people who have been around longer than me. I learn from people like Beau, who maybe have a fresh approach for different reasons. They come from a different arena, a different background, but they have a fresh approach to what I've been trying to do. And it doesn't matter where I learn, it matters that I learn.
100%.
Because as it says in the big book, contempt prior to investigation is a bar against all information and will lead to everlasting ignorance, and I will be ignorant no more. So,
amen to that.
Hey, have a great day, Beau. Thank you again, and thank you very much for listening to this podcast. This will be obviously on Tuesday. You're going to get this next, and then on Wednesday, this will be on the Real Recovery Guy on YouTube. So I hope that you dial it up there as well. One of the most important things that we all remember, and we talked about it earlier, is that we all come in broken. But remember, we get broken apart and we get whole together. My name is Robert, and as always, I am the Recovery Guy.